Welcome everyone to our webinar today. My name is Lars Peterson. I'm here on the behest of EFR, Employee Family Resources, and it's great seeing everybody jump on Kahoot. It really makes it useful, and the answers, the wisdom that comes out in these answers, you'll see that very soon because we have a question coming up quickly. One thing to note is whatever you put for your identifier on the screen right now, it will not show up on any of the answers. So you can answer it as fully or as openly or transparently as you want. No identifiers, and that's been the great thing about Kahoot. I'm going to go ahead and just say a little bit about myself, and that QR code right now, once I go to the next screen, that goes away. So this is a good time to snap that, although you can go to the website or the app as well. So I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. I also obviously do training for EFR, and I do some family business consulting. And as you might imagine, family businesses have some high stakes conversations at times. In fact, this morning, right before I started, I was on with a person in Colorado, and it was a psychotherapy appointment, but she's in a family business, and it's really, really at a difficult stage. So I do all of those things, but a lot of my background's been in business. So I may provide examples from either business or from psychotherapy. Apologies, I don't see any Joes or Janes right now up, but those are who I use for client names so that I never have to worry about saying a client name. With that, I'm just going to jump right in. And again, boy, it's great to see everybody on Kahoot. So high stakes conversations, we all have those, right? Either at work, we have them with our family. Sometimes we have those with our friends. The person I was just meeting with had a high stakes conversation in the sense that she had to spearhead an intervention for her dad to go into treatment, and he was highly resistant to doing that. Well, there's a pretty high stakes conversation. So today we're going to understand how we're wired, how we react to threats, how we can manage that threat system that's part of us, and some ways to communicate when our stress is high and patience is low. Joseph Grenny from Crucial Conversations says, when we need to be at our very best, oftentimes we're at our worst. That's because the stress is high, and we'll kind of jump into that concept. But right off the bat, what have you seen in your life or around you, other people's lives, people close to you? What are the costs of poor communication when the stakes are high? What can happen? Why is this so important? So a lot of people here today. This is obviously an important, it looks like 82 people. Important topic. Why? What can happen? And by the way, it says you have 49, 48, 47 seconds left. As long as I haven't advanced to the next slide, you can still answer. So don't get too worried about that time. A few of the answers are only going to be 30-second, but that'll make sense when we get there. Already have a lot of answers. That's awesome. I'm going to guess there's going to be some pretty striking impacts that are shown when I show the answers. Okay, keep typing. Like I said, it'll still come in. But let's see if there's some themes. I'm not going to read each one, obviously. Answers are still coming in, which is awesome. Okay, let's see what we have so far as themes. Stress, misconception, disagreement, ruined relationships, damaging relationships, so So a lot about miscommunication, burning bridges, damaged relationships, so a lot about that. Poor performance, poor outcomes, without a doubt, within businesses. Distrust. Trust is hard to build back, right? Very hard. Lose relationships. So a lot about relationships lost or damaged, trust lost or damaged, respect, failure, personal failure, business failure, irrational responses if communication isn't clear, for sure. Been there myself. So just take a look. Again, I'm not going to read all these, but just look at the themes and how impactful. If there was any doubt when we started this presentation, there should be no doubt now. This is important, right? Loss of inventory, costs. So again, business, personal. Okay. So let's see what we can do about that. So a high stakes conversation for today at least is something's important, it matters, right? If it doesn't matter that much, it's like, yeah, I'd rather have, Mexican tonight, but I'm okay with steak. Well, obviously it's not that important most of the time. I'm not sure about my stepson. He's food's really important to him, but really it's not that important, right? So it has to matter. Emotions are high in high stakes conversations. We can get that fight, flight, or freeze, which we're going to see in the next few slides. There may be history. We may have assumptions. We may even have stories about that person in our head that may or may not be true. Often it feels personal. I used to hate it when I was in some sales management kind of roles, and I used to hate it when people say, "Well, it's just business. It's not personal. It's just business." Pretty hard to separate those two, right? And high stakes conversations can be unpredictable. Like we're just talking about something and boom, it got high stakes quickly. So I love this this particular slide because look at the tennis shoes. This is still us, right? When we get triggered, when something happens, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. But this goes way, way back. This wiring has been within us forever. It used to be about running from wild animals or some kind of a physical danger. Now it's often about, are we going to lose our job? What about our marriage? How's that going? Are our kids going to, all these other things that can really trigger that sense of fight, flight, or freeze. And this is, I want to be real clear that from my perspective, this is a reaction. It's not something we choose. So if I'm driving, even if I'm an overthinker, someone pulls into my lane, okay, right now, so it's 10:09 right now, roughly. I'm not going to say to myself, they're in my lane. That's really unfortunate. Well, I doubt they're eating because it's 10:09. But maybe they're texting. People do, crash. 10 seconds ago, they're like the minute I started that, there would have been a crash. This is a reaction, and it's the strongest system in our body. If we believe something's going on, that's going to hurt us in some way, again, emotionally, physically, in some way, we go into either fight, flight, or freeze. We don't have a choice. Now, this is a similar or a kind of an extension of that model will apply to conversations. Window of tolerance, when we're in that window, we're calm, we're alert, we can think clearly, we're creative, we can be innovative, we can bounce ideas off people, we can do all those things. Hyperarousal, hyper too much, that's anxiety, fear, hypervigilance, really on edge. Anger, that's a lot of arousal, too much arousal. Hypo is I think the easiest way to think about hypoarousal is shut down, disconnected. Like I'm out of here mentally, okay? Mentally, sometimes physically. What I see a lot in teams, I see it in couples, I do a lot of couples counseling, is one person in the team, the group, the dyad can go up and the other person can go down. Yesterday, perfect example of that, I was talking to a couple who live in Colorado, and he tends to go up, she tends to go down. The more he goes up, the more she goes down. The more she goes down, then he gets anxious and angry, the more he goes up, and it just keeps going. So one thing that, and I asked them this yesterday, I try to ask, everyone I use this model with, when you were way up here or way down here, did you ever have a really productive, good conversation? So far, no one has said yes. Fight, flight, or freeze. We're not designed to think clearly if we're running away from an animal, right? So take a second just to think about when you really get triggered, something happens Do you tend to go up? Do you tend to shut down? Or do you tend to go up and then shut down? This window of tolerance, the reason it's important for us today is staying in the window of tolerance enhances the chances that we'll have a productive conversation, a productive high stakes conversation. If you haven't been getting sleep, window of tolerance is this big now instead of this big. If you have had a lot of trauma that's been unhealed in your past, or something in this situation reminds you about something really difficult in your past, your window of tolerance shrinks. So this can be a bit of a moving target, but being aware that that's operating can be really helpful. The couple yesterday said, you know, that when you explain this window of tolerance to us, that's been really helpful. And it is a concept that can be helpful. So here's why it's just, and I'm not going to read all these, you can see these, but these things happen when we're outside the window, right? It's hard to focus, it's hard to think clearly. We tend to tune out. And when we're outside the window of tolerance, it's kind of like we're running from an animal and we hear a loud noise, we're going to jump even more. When there's a sense of threat, we see even more threat. It colors how we view the world, right? If I'm driving my car and that car swerves in my lane, I'm not, oh, and there's beautiful clouds and what a nice day. You know, no, it's like this. Hard to think clearly when we're like this. Inside the window of tolerance, we can do all these things. We can just be so much more effective. So what I maintain is that probably most or all of you know some approaches to communication that work, right? You're working in organizations, you're doing hard things at times, you know how to communicate with people. But when we get triggered, that's when it gets hard. So what tends to trigger your threat reaction? Is it aggressive behavior, criticism, judgment, conflict, being left out? What tends to trigger your fight, flight, or freeze, or get you up out of the window or down? And I think this photograph's quite a quite a photograph regarding what we're talking about. I don't know if that cat's fleeing or fighting or what exactly is going on. In a family situation, there might be different triggers. In a business situation or organizational context, different triggers, right? So a lot of this is context specific, even whether we go up or we go down. So based on past presentations, my prediction will be conflict, holding people accountable, being criticized, being judged, those kinds of things that we talked about. We'll see. Disrespect. Okay, there's another one that I didn't mention. Aggressive body language, tone of voice, aggression. Hurt feelings, you bet. So you can see criticism, aggression. So you can see some real themes here. Whatever you put, I don't think you're alone here. Yeah, withholding information, not accepting responsibility, that can be a trigger. Yeah, so a lot of different things, but definitely some themes. Aging family, employment, life, right? Sleep. Being taken advantage of, that's one for a lot of us, right? When the person I talked to in Colorado today, this sense of unfairness that she's doing so much for this family business, no one's recognizing it, and in fact, she's not being treated fairly. Big trigger. So this is the premise. Staying or getting back into the window of tolerance is critical in holding high stakes conversations, because when we don't think clearly. We're not creative, we don't listen, or if we do listen, we're not really listening. So mindfulness is a topic, I know Johanna talks a lot about it and does some training around just self-awareness and being able to manage stress. Mindfulness is a really good tool used correctly for stress reduction, greater happiness, recognizing, appreciating, and it can be really helpful to, oh, you know what? I'm getting activated. For me, my jaws get tight. I get butterflies in my stomach. What about you? Oh, the other person's activated. I just noticed something in their tone of voice, or they're kind of, leaning in, or they just stood up, or something's different. They're getting activated. Maybe they're not in the window of tolerance. Yeah, noticing all this can be really, really helpful, because once you're aware, you can say, okay, wait a minute, I need to take a break. I need to walk away. I need to ground myself. I need to do something. So it's the gap so we don't react. Like the car example, that's just a reaction. We don't want to do that. So mindfulness, paying attention, grounding ourselves, being aware right now, really sends the attention away from the amygdala, the other parts of the brain that are part of the threat system, and we then are able to think more clearly, with more flexibility. It redirects activity in our brain. So I'm going to ask you to do something right now. I don't think anybody will know you're even doing it. But first, I'm going to ask you to do something counterintuitive to see if this is helpful for you. This is going to be a grounding exercise. Obviously, it's optional, but unless there's something going on that really precludes you from doing this, I'd really like you to try it just to see what happens. So first, I'd like you to think about something stressful, not a 10, not a 9, not even an 8, 5, 6, 7. Maybe it's something that happened a while back, or something you didn't do as well as you would like to, or an upcoming presentation, or an upcoming meeting with your boss or stakeholders, something that kind of like, ooh, yeah, it's kind of stressful. And then just all you have to do is follow along with my voice. Find something in your room, or I guess you probably can see my room as well, obviously. So something in your environment that's red, reddish. Find something white, should be easy, kind of right in front of us. Find something blue, not on the screen. Find something visually appealing, whatever that means. Find something with texture. For me, it's my walls. There's a little bit of texture. Now see if you can identify 2 different sounds, not my voice. Could be a sound within a sound. See if you can feel your feet, either on the floor, in your shoes. You may even have to wiggle your toes a little bit, but feel your feet. Now feel the bend in your legs, and maybe your legs touching the chair if you're sitting down. Feel your stomach expanding and contracting just a little bit as you breathe. Notice if it's choppy or smooth. Allow your shoulders to come down from your ears a little bit. Maybe they will, maybe they won't, but just allow them to relax down a bit. And see if you can let your tongue be a little bit more relaxed in your mouth. Surprising place we hold tension. Okay, 525, simple grounding technique. What did you notice? 30 seconds. So not a lot of time for this one, but you don't need a lot of time. You noticed something or you didn't. And I should have timed that, but that had to be a minute or less, or not much over a minute at least. I've actually used that in session when someone was having a panic attack, when their partner said something really disturbing to them, and they were able to come out of that panic attack just by me guiding them through that, just getting grounded. Okay, we'll see what people say. So my prediction based on past presentations, 85, 90% will say calmer, tired, relaxed. Didn't know I had tension here, more aware. But we'll see. Wow. In a minute. The less type my top, yeah, look at these striking answers. This wasn't a 5-minute thing. I didn't ask you to be mindful for 20 minutes. That's pretty striking. So the reason that's important is you can do any piece of that 5-2-5 before a really critical conversation, after to kind of de-stress, or during. Just notice your feet on the ground. Look around for a minute. They're not going to know you're doing that. Tune into your breath a little bit. You can do any pieces of that in the middle of something, especially if you've been practicing it so it comes to your mind. If you don't practice it in between times, of course, you're not going to think about it. Okay, so again, in these high stakes conversations, it's really helpful to get on the same team. This is Joseph Graney, Crucial Conversations. You can say almost anything to almost anyone if they know you truly care about them and have their best interests. Think about it for a second. Anyone in your life, a really good friend, a relative, anyone in your life, a boss, a mentor, who could say something to you that, wow, that's hard to hear. And they took it in. You can take it in. You can take it in because they care. Today in the session this morning, I said something that I think was difficult for the client to hear, but she knew I did not mean it out of malice. She knew that I had her best interest in mind. She took it in and she ran with it. She got it and she expanded on it. You can be direct. So that doesn't mean you have to be blunt. Setting the stage for a critical, this high stakes conversation. Number one, is this a good time to discuss? If someone's really busy or they're getting ready for a meeting, or they're just their mind's going 100 miles an hour to try and for whatever reason, probably not a great time to discuss. They're already out of the window of tolerance or getting there. Okay. Stressing mutual purpose, getting on the same team. You know what? We've both been, use EFR for an example, we've both been associated with EFR for over 5 years. I know you want what's best for the organization, and we really see this differently. Let's talk about how we can get on the same, how we can resolve this. Maybe consider owning your part in this. Really good way to make people feel less defensive. Sometimes it's not safe to do that. Sometimes people will really run with that, but most of the time, and you can judge that, they'll just like, oh, okay. Avoiding blame and criticism, we know that. And general startup is just, I noticed the last 3 times you've been late to our sales meeting. I'm worried about that for a number of reasons, maybe state the reasons. Really need you to be on time for these sales meetings. It's really important for the cohesion of our team, or whatever. Gentle startup, observation, feeling, need. Conversations usually end the way they start. Another way to get into the window of tolerance, what do I really want? Okay, you know what? I want to be heard. I want to be appreciated. This morning, my client, I want to be appreciated. But it's not happening for mom and dad. They're not in that they don't have that ability right now because of a lot of other things going on in their lives. Okay, I want to be appreciated. What do I really want? Well, I really want to maintain this difficult relationship and resolve whatever we have going. Okay, what do I really want? One way to get back down into the window of tolerance. A sample narrative. It's not the only one. You guys already, I'm sure, could come up with your own way to do this. Timing. Is this a good time to talk? Mutual purpose. We both want what's best. Observation. When you said my idea was naive and simplistic, a video camera could catch that, or a phone or whatever could catch that. I felt what you feel, not I feel like you're unfair. It's not really a feeling. I felt surprised, disappointed, and angry. What I need when we disagree. Here's what I want. Okay, want or need. And then feedback. So one way to approach high stakes conversations to maximize safety. It doesn't guarantee safety, but to maximize the chance that you'll both be able to stay in the window of tolerance and thereby be able to have a productive conversation. So speaking of the window, excuse me for just a moment. Speaking of the window of tolerance, these are clues the other person's escalating or shutting down. Escalating if they're trying to talk over you, shutting down if they've just gone silent. Changes in their voice, rapid speech, their posture has changed, they're leaning forward or somehow being a little bit more aggressive. You know what, if they're not understanding what you're saying and it's not a highly technical thing, maybe they're shutting down. If they're starting to blame, they're probably escalating. They're getting out of the window of tolerance if these things are happening. Is there a way to get more safety and to reestablish mutual purpose? This is an interesting slide because what it really points to is many of us have things going on in our lives that make us more reactive. Remember that window of tolerance, if there's a lot going on in our life or there's past trauma, whatever, it can be shrunk. So if we're worried that maybe our relationship's heading toward a divorce, or we're worried about our job, or we're worried about, what it's going to be like without our kids there, whatever it is, if those things are happening, that's going to influence how we talk to other people, us and others toward us. And you know what? It's very helpful to know your North Star before you get into one of these high stakes conversations. What kind of person do you want to be? How do you want to be able to see yourself in these kind of situations? What are your triggers? Knowing those ahead of time. It was really interesting yesterday with this couple. He didn't realize what a trigger it was when his wife asked him to help more, until we were able to draw a connection between his dad, who was a completely absent dad and not involved at all, and he swore he would never be like his dad. Wow, what a trigger. He didn't quite get that. But once he understood that that was a trigger, really helpful. What skills do I need to remember and practice? Grounding, mutual purpose, safety, whatever. And self-management, what's it look like for me? So we're going to try one more before and we're getting close to wrapping up here. I'm going to ask you again to think about something stressful, not a 10, not a 9, something that happened to you. And I know this is artificial, so it may be even hard to do it, but maybe even some tension about, I wonder if I'll be able to do this right. I wonder, whatever it is, something hard in the future, something hard that happened, maybe a place you didn't measure up. And then we're just going to go through this a couple times. It's going to be quick. I'm going to time this one. So acknowledge whatever's happening in your body and your emotions. So just notice, oh, chest is tight, stomach, whatever it is, face, anger, fear, acknowledge. Now come into your body. If you have to stretch, if you have to push your feet into the ground, whatever kind of gets you like right into your body, out of your head, okay? Whatever that is. And now experience right here, my voice, what we're doing, maybe even look around your room right here. Back to acknowledge. Okay, what's going on in your body, your emotions. Maybe you have racing thoughts. Now come into your body again. Stretch, push your hands together, push your feet into the floor, it doesn't matter. Maybe just notice your breath and then experience back to right now, right here. Dropping anchor, just like a ship in a really turbulent sea drops an anchor down. The sea's still turbulent, they're not. Okay, that was 1 minute and 10 seconds. What did you notice? And again, you only have 30 seconds. Usually I take people through that 3 times and recommend practicing it 3 times, but we did it twice. Both of these techniques you can easily find on the internet just by searching. Okay, we'll see what's here so far. Keep typing, it'll come in. Sleepy, calm or relaxing, distracted, okay. De-escalation of emotions, okay. My mind drifting, relaxation, good. Stepped outside the situation, calm, focus, calm. 1 minute and 10 seconds. Grounding helped ease that, okay. Yeah, so maybe pick maybe an 8 or 9 for the situation, but fortunately, the grounding helped bring that down. Coming into my body helped, okay. Now again, you can do that before a conversation, during a conversation, after a conversation. No one's going to know that you're just tuning in a little bit to your body and what's going on, or that you're maybe pressing your feet into the floor a little bit as you stand or sit there. Grounding, 1 minute and 10 seconds. So last question. Based on today's presentation, it could be somebody else's answer. It doesn't have to be a thing I said, but maybe something you thought of. What will you do? And actually, if you could add, when will you start, so that good intentions don't stay good intentions, don't stay very faint good intentions, and then forgotten. So I'm going to what? Self-care, check in with myself, check in with others, practice grounding, mindfulness, breathing, breath work, exercise more, whatever. What are you going to do, and when are you going to start? Read more about high stakes conversations. Crucial Conversations is a great book, and there's many others. Okay, we'll see what we have so far. Wow. Posted on my desk today. Great. Window of tolerance, North Star, grounding, mindfulness, awareness. Wow, that's quite a list. So think just for a second, then I'm going to turn this over to Johanna. Think just for a second, if you did this for the next 3 months, really intentionally, you practiced and you practiced and practiced, how would your life be different? Wow, it's an amazing list. Okay, Johanna, that's the end of the formal presentation.
All right, thank you, Lars, and thanks to everyone for contributing through Kahoot. It was nice to see everyone's ideas and responses. I just wanted to remind you of your benefits through EFR. So most people who join our webinars have our EAP, and if you have EAP benefits through EFR, don't forget that you have access to 24-hour phone support by calling 800-327-4692. You will always speak with a licensed counselor, and that person can help you kind of navigate whatever situation you're going through and identify resources through EFR that you could tap into to address whatever's going on in your life. EAP benefits are for you and your household family members as well. So keep that in mind as you consider the different resources we have available. Resources are anything from in-person or virtual counseling to telephonic financial and legal consultation, elder and child care resources, identity theft resolution, and life coaching services. So lots of great resources you can learn more about by going to our website efr.org or giving us a call at 800-327-4692. And I just wanted to make an announcement that we have a webinar coming up on Wednesday, April 12th, and this is Influencing Decisions and Outcomes Using the Enneagram with Barb Rank. You can access the registration for this webinar through our website, or you can download our app, which you see here. You can scan the QR code or search EFR in either of the app stores. And usually we're one of the top, if not the top hits, if you use EFR as your search term. But our app is an easy way to stay connected to your benefits, and ultimately a great way to remember that you have these resources. I think oftentimes people in the moment, you know, they want to use a benefit, they want to call EFR, but you know, maybe you're so overwhelmed with what's going on around you that you have no idea who your benefit is offered through, or you're at home and you know that there's that poster in the break room or the brochure in your colleague's office, but for the life of you, you cannot remember who your benefit is through. So if you download our app, you'll always have our number and resources at your fingertips. And like I said, we have a webinar coming up in April, and you can click on the webinars link through our app and you can get registered through that. And if anyone has questions either about the EAP benefits or about the presentation today, you can enter those in the chat, and I'm happy to moderate back between you and Lars. There will be a recording of this on our website by the end of the day today. And it looks like we don't have any questions. So Lars, thank you so much for your time and expertise, and make it a great day, everyone.
All right. Thanks, Johanna. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.